Hi everyone, let's go through all my preferred and alternative low time frame scenarios, starting with a very bearish scenario where the end of wave 5 is over here after some sort of an ending diagonal, which definitely is not very clean, but in this scenario the end of 5 is over here. And we are now looking for this to be a wave 1, a 3 wave in wave 2, then another 1, 2 for eventually more downside to come. In this scenario, this yellow wave 2 reached the 0.886, which is a rare target for a wave 2, so definitely not a common target for a wave 2. And also this wave 1 is actually not a very nice and clean wave 1. It can't be a leading diagonal because this last wave is too long compared to wave 3, and actually having some sort of an impulse over here is quite difficult to count, so this is not too clear as well. And then if we look at the potential CVD, I would like to see bearish divergences for eventually a lot more downside to come, which shows absorption, basically meaning that if this is a high over here and we now have a lower high, so a lower high on price, I would like to see a higher high on the CVD, which shows that many people are buying, but it's being absorbed by the bigger positions, and therefore we're gonna, well, at least the likelihood of price then continuing to the downside is much higher. So this is definitely an alternative scenario. However, the potential trading setup for a scenario like this would be to enter the potential shorts in this area, stop loss above at the invalidation, which is very, very clear in this scenario, and then trading it to the downside. The second scenario is that wave 5 ended over here, which is, by the way, the wave 5 of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so the final leg of this much bigger impulse in general. So what we're looking for is this then to be an expanded flat in the A, followed by a WXY in B, and then eventually a bigger move C to the downside. In this scenario, we then have an ABC expanded flat where wave B, the most common target, is the 1.236 and the 1.38 pulled from the high of 5 to the low of wave A. And then the potential trading setup in this scenario is to enter these shorts over here, stop loss safely above, and then eventually trading it to the downside. The invalidation at the moment for this WXY for me is below this X, because if price would go below this X at the moment and not move up in a 3-wave Y, well, there's not much support over here below this wick of wave X. So for me, it's very likely that if we are going to move to the downside, then yeah, we're probably going to take the low of A as well. And that makes this scenario for me a little bit less likely. Then we go to a more in-depth scenario, as you can also see by the chart, with, again, wave 5 ending over here. And then we have a expanded flat in this scenario, but it's not a wave A, but now it's a wave W. So this is a wave W, which actually, with following the expanded flat rules, this being an ABC, this move ended exactly in the most common target for a C wave to the downside, the two 1.618s, very, very nice. Then we have a zigzag wave X over here, also ending in the most common target area for a wave C in a zigzag, very nice. And then we'd be looking for this to be a W, X, and eventually a Y to the downside, with then inside this W, this move being a W, X, Y, X, Z scenario, followed by a 3-wave in the X, and then eventually a move down in the yellow Y, which then also finishes the white Y over here, and therefore a potential wave A, because what I would then be probably looking for is this to be a 3-wave in the blue A, followed by a 3-wave in B, and then eventually C. So then again having an expanded flat ABC for then inside the C a lot more downside to come. Now for me, the only reason to potentially have this trading set up is because it could be a swing failure pattern trade, meaning that price would go below this white line. As we have a double bottom, we have this low over here and this low over here, so there might be some liquidity resting right there. Then we take this low and then eventually move to the upside again, and probably take the low, close the candle above, move to the upside. Stop loss would be below the low that's going to be made, and then the long setup would be until the targets of a wave B expanded flat. But we only know the targets for this wave B once this A wave is actually in, and we can observe what price does if it comes this low. There is, however, one little thing with this scenario, and that is that this move, especially this wave Y, so in this bigger W, X, and then Y, this Y starts to become quite long, I would say. It's already longer than the 1-to-1 of this wave W in time. Now that's no problem. The 1.618 is still a valid target, but I would like to see wave Y coming down relatively quickly and not take a lot longer, because that makes this scenario a lot less likely. And if we then go to the final scenario, we would then again have wave 5 ending over here with a 3 wave in the W, a 3 wave in X, but now wave Y is already finished over here with then a W, X, Y, X, Z setup. Now the reason that wave Y could be finished over here is that it hit the 0.786, which is a minimum target for a wave Y. So yes, wave Y did not take the W, but that is not necessarily a requirement. It doesn't have to close below a W per se. The WXY waves tend to follow up to one another between the 0.786 and the 1.38 fib. So this is still a very valid target for a wave Y, and in this scenario this then is a wave A, so that is a blue A, so we have 3 waves in the blue A, then looking for some sort of a 3 wave in B and a 5 wave in C. Again, looking for that expanded flat to also take the double highs, by the way, that we have over here. Now in this scenario there's basically 2 ways that this wave B could potentially play out. The first is that we would we have 3 waves over here followed by 3 waves to the downside, taking the double bottom and then eventually move up in a C. So then we have an expanded flat in B before then moving down in a blue C. So then we have a 1, 2, 3 and then boom to the downside. The other scenario is this is a, well, maybe a W, we have an X and eventually a Y. To have more upside, we're not going to take these lows, we're just moving to the upside to go to the targets of a wave B expanded flat and then move to the downside. At the moment, for me personally, the more horizontal scenarios are more likely than the very bearish scenario, basically this scenario. However, don't count this one out. I do miss the CVD though, and of course the rare wave 2 here is not that great. But yeah, the most preferred scenarios for me at the moment would be the more horizontal scenarios with the WXYs setups basically, as well as this one. But yeah, it's we gotta have more price action and see what happens. This one actually becomes maybe a little bit less likely than the WXYs that I have over here. I like these 2 the most, to be honest. But yeah, that being said, I hope this video was helpful or valuable to you. I'd like to thank you for watching and subscribing, and I will see you at my next Bitcoin update video tomorrow morning at 7 AM Central East European time. Bye bye.